what happened was this February 4th of 16, I did go in as an emergency into an emergency room. And I ended up getting some morphine. And it actually, there was a reaction where I suppressed my breathing and I did code and die. No brain, no activity in the heart. I ended up experiencing this flutter and it did not hurt at all. It's indescribable, the flutter I experienced right before my heart stopped. Next thing I know, I'm up above my body, watching everything. It's a dark ER room. At the same time, next thing I know, I'm traveling in a dark, dark tunnel with jagged rocks that I used to steps. I call it the tunnel of hell. Very, very evil. Down below, I heard a lot of negative uh, name calling, just plain mean, uh, derogatory comments towards each other, yelling, screaming. But I was focused on climbing up those jagged rocks up out of that tunnel, that dark, slimy, ugly tunnel. I did have an evil entity who I choose to call the devil, saying, "You can't make it, you can't make it." As I'm kicking and stuff, I remember the very last jagged rock. I looked down and said, "Hell no." Next thing I know, I am in this light and I'm sitting with Jesus. Now, I am aware I haven't had the complete story of my near death experience still, but I do believe that I did pass amongst a bunch of people with lights walking with me to sit with Jesus. When I sat with him, it was telepathic. He exuded pure love. It's I didn't believe in love whatsoever before I died. I didn't have any clue. I didn't believe in heaven or hell, period. I basically, yeah, just not a happy person with that kind of stuff. So I experienced something that I didn't know even existed whatsoever. When I sat with him, he described that I would be a whistleblower and that I would tell truths that could potentially make some people angry in the world today. Truth is kind of a problem with many, not all. I don't categorize people at all after I died. But when I spoke with him, he said, you're going to have these medical conditions. You're going to have growths. I have a growth on my kidney, liver, and lung, and a massive heart condition, what have you. And he said that with everything, with the body conditions I'm going to have, it'll be proof that he exists. So, and I was told that basically told me what was going to happen with me, even meeting with you, Jeff, that I was told with all these experiences that I would be used to be able to help others in recovery and realizing stuff. I was heavily abused as a child, so I understand abuse, mental and physical. And I also became homeless, which Jesus did describe, on and off for about 4 years. I've never had addictions. I have never had issues with drinking, never been a criminal, but I walked among the homeless and I learned a lot. I learned human compassion. And I've learned also that you can't assume literally and figuratively what shoes someone wears at any point because you don't know what they're going through or what they've been through. So I've learned to be very, very compassionate. And so I've experienced so much. And it happened 6 years ago, February 4th. And also, I had been told that I would be an advocate to advocate for people that struggle. And we all do struggle in one fashion or another. My son, Nicholas, actually died 6 years ago, February 4th. He died on my anniversary this year. He was my only son, and he has a story. He was homeless. I know that my son died on that day that God took him that day on purpose. I don't believe in mere coincidences. I think it was God saying, Robin, of late, I've been saying, you know what, God, I'm sick of your road. I don't want to have a part of it. Pick somebody else. I don't like the job you've given me. I don't like the job I agreed to. But actually, before you connected with me, I do believe last Wednesday, Tuesday began calling God a liar. Nothing's happened and nobody's approaching me. You have not told me the ending is not the truth. Everything you told me is the truth, but the ending isn't. And then Wednesday morning, I woke up and said, okay, God, you need to show me proof. That's when you got a hold of me. A couple of hours later, I said, God, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm struggling with my heart condition and everything else. And that gift came. You are the proof. And then I think, I don't know my whole NDE. Some of us don't know the whole thing. Some of us know a little bit. Some of us don't know any of it. And that's just how it is. Many people I read say, why didn't I experience anything? Why don't I remember? I think we're meant to remember what we're meant to remember. I really do. So what ended up happening is I met with Jesus. He described the defamation of character, all the ugliness that would happen in my life, and that eventually I would meet with someone and it would be talked about to get an exposure. After that, I ended up walking somewhere that had two great big columns with a bright light. I assume it was God in a booming voice demanding me to go. It's kind of interesting. Next thing I know, I'm back in my body. And it's interesting. I ended up leaving the ER by foot after having died. I suspect about 4.5 minutes I had coded and was let out the front door. I somehow made it 2.2 miles. It took me over 4 hours, but somehow it's becoming more and more obvious that God's hand is on me. I have stories of I was homeless in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's proof. I have instances where things I've met up with people that there's no way, no how, that I met somebody from Oregon when this happened in Atlanta. She's actually from that small town, had been born there, knew everything and all. And she was a drug and alcohol rehab counselor. Now, how do you talk about your near death and her know, that person know all the players and everything all the way in Atlanta, Georgia? That just does not happen. That would take me quite an imagination to make that story up. But I ended up, so I've struggled and struggled and struggled. But in the struggle, all the ugliness, even as a small child, it's made me who I am today. And I can relate. And I think that is a major outcome in my story, is knowing that there's a reason for everything. Everything. And I'm so certain of that. Even the ugliness, even my homelessness. Who would really pick homelessness? Let's talk about affordable housing. Let's talk about the stats that only about 47% in a major city in Oregon are addicts or alcoholics. Let's talk, So I'm so well versed on homelessness, addictions, mental health issues. And I praise God for that I'm able, I one-on-one help a lot of people. And just suggestions. When it comes to other near-death experiences, we are all individuals and we are all unique. I do not criticize or critique someone else's NDE because they're different than I am. So it's all about acceptance and just listening. And, certain things might resonate for someone that might not for someone else. And I'm not all about condemning or anything, because who am I to do that? I think we all meet our maker in the end. I believe I didn't have a life review because I have this, my opinion on me. I didn't have a life review because I never had the intent to ever harm anyone with malice or being malicious. So I totally believe that in my case. That's why I didn't get a life. But I wish I could remember in detail my NDE. But unfortunately, I am on a very, very tight budget and I'm unable to afford to have somebody. I did come away with some talents about 3 times, 4 times now, including a friend with Facebook, near death experiences, where I take on the characteristics in the mind of someone that has already passed, giving a message to another person. And for me, it takes me outside my own box and comfort zone. But each time I had an entity inside of me for a half hour telling me, you have to talk to my sister, would not leave me alone. Finally, after a half hour fighting him off, I said, okay, and went and spoke with her and talked about how his perspective on the great big fight they had before he died. She was still unsettled about the great big fight they had. And I was able to tell her what he is feeling and how he feels now. So I did walk away with that talent too. I think a lot of people, I'm not a mind reader at all, but I have a very good knack for observation, where I can tell just by the way they carry themselves that they're pain. My intuitiveness is really acute, which is really awesome. I actually, on occasion, will walk around and talk to people. I'm able to pick out other people that have had an NDE, and I can tell them how many they've had. Just out in the open, I've said, "So you've had 2 NDEs, huh?" And they look at me, yeah. And so I'm able to connect energies to connect energies. I'm able to walk around and find, one day I found 3 people who had an NDE as myself in a small rural town. So I love that connection of saying, hey, you've had an NDE and you've had a couple. And they're so receptive. They understand off the bat that they can talk freely about it. So that's a great human connection. It really is. We are meant to support each other, keep each other, encourage one another with healthy boundaries. Because, like I said, it's about compassion, love, mercy, and grace. I am a Christian, but in totality, that's what it's about: love, mercy, and grace. I don't care, me personally, what you want to label it, but that's what it is: the pure of heart. So, but I know eventually that I'll be let in about my whole NDE, what I experienced with the bodies that had the lights inside their body frame. I know later on I'll know more. I think just over time, you can't hurry something like that. So when I'm speaking of this, many people want to know the whole thing. And I just accept I'm not meant to at this time and space.